Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever thought that a secret wedding gift could turn into a literal fortress, saving a family from the jaws of death? Today, we are diving into an incredibly suspenseful, heart-pounding, and deeply romantic story about Jack and Tu Tien. Trying to escape a ruthless crime syndicate, the couple retreats to an isolated, half-built cabin deep in the mountains. Amidst a raging typhoon, Jack secretly prepares a massive, beautiful surprise for his wife. But they have no idea that a kill squad has already tracked them down to their very doorstep. What is this secret gift? And how far will a man go to protect his sanctuary during the bloodiest night of their lives? You'll have to listen until the very end to find out. Before we begin, if you enjoy thrilling, cinematic stories like this, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our future uploads. Your support means the world to us. Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let's step into the storm. The highland air preceding a typhoon is not merely heavy, it is asphyxiating. It carries the metallic copper tang of impending violence, pressing down on the lungs and turning the sky into a bruised canopy of violet and slate. Tu Tien stood at the edge of the rushing mountain stream, her simple cotton trousers soaked to the calves. The water, usually a source of crystalline comfort, churned with an aggressive, muddy froth today, reflecting the turbulent heavens. She reached up, her slender fingers stretching toward the high branches of an ancient fig tree. The wild figs were ripe, their green skins taut, promising a bittersweet crunch that Jack loved. But as her fingers closed around a cluster, a sharp chill traced the length of her spine, completely at odds with the stifling afternoon heat. Snap! A thick branch broke in the dense bamboo thicket directly across the stream. Tu Tien froze. The rhythmic rushing of the water seemed to mute, replaced by the deafening, erratic drumming of her own heartbeat. She didn't turn her head immediately. She knew better than to act like prey. Her eyes darted to the periphery of her vision. The shadows between the bamboo stalks seemed unnaturally dark, shifting, and morphing. She slowly lowered her gaze to the mud bank on the opposite side. There, deeply impressed into the soft clay, was a footprint. It was fresh, rapidly filling with murky water, and it was massive, the heavy tread of a combat boot, not the smooth rubber soles of the local farmers. They had been found. They had moved to this isolated, half-built cabin near the construction site to escape the suffocating pressures of the city. And more importantly, the dangerous eyes that had been tracking Jack's every move. Jack, a brilliant but fiercely independent project manager, had recently won a bid for a massive provincial infrastructure project, ripping a multi-billion-dollar contract right out from under the nose of a ruthless local syndicate led by a man known only as King. Since then, their lives had been a series of silent anxieties, severed brake lines, and constant, agonizing vigilance. A crow cawed sharply overhead, a harsh, jagged sound that broke the trance. Tien grabbed her woven basket, her knuckles turning bone-white, and hurried up the embankment. She didn't run. Running triggered the chase. But her pace was desperate, her breath catching in her throat as the looming silhouette of their unfinished, isolated brick house came into view. She needed to get inside. She needed to lock the heavy iron deadbolts. And more than anything, she needed Jack. Miles away, sitting in a dimly lit roadside cafe, shrouded in the choking red dust of passing dump trucks, Jack stared into the murky depths of his iced coffee. His jaw was set like carved granite, the muscles feathering rhythmically as he calculated his next move. Opposite him sat Fook, his youngest and most promising site manager. The boy looked terrible. Dark circles carved deep valleys under his eyes, and his hands possessed a subtle, uncontrollable tremor. "Is the site secure, Fook?" Jack asked, his voice low, a gravelly baritone that demanded absolute truth. "Yes, Uncle Jack. The concrete pouring is on schedule. The perimeter fences are reinforced, Fuchs stammered, wiping a bead of cold sweat from his temple. Jack studied the young man. You're lying. Not about the sight. About yourself. You've lost 5 kilos in a month. You flinch when a door slams. Now you're asking me for an advance of 50 million dong in untraceable cash, claiming a friend needs medical help. Oh, those zones. Fuchs swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing erratically. It's true, Uncle. My friend is in deep trouble. Jack leaned forward, casting a long, intimidating shadow over the small, dented aluminum table. Let me guess. Your friend is actually you. And the people you owe money to aren't hospital administrators. They're Kang's loan sharks. The ones running protection rackets for the rival firm. The ones trying to sabotage my project. Fuchs' eyes widened in sheer, paralyzing panic. He opened his mouth to deny it, but the terrifyingly calm, all-knowing look in Jack's eyes silenced him. Fuchs broke, burying his face in his trembling hands. They cornered me last week, Uncle. They said if I didn't give them insider access to the site's structural blueprints, they would go after my mother's shop in the city. I refused, so they demanded a 50 million penalty for my defiance, due today by sunset. If I don't pay. Jack's expression didn't change, but a cold, blinding fury ignited in his chest. Kang was circling closer. He couldn't break Jack, so he was targeting the weak links, dismantling his crew through terror. Without a word, Jack reached into his heavy leather satchel. He pulled out a thick, unmarked brown envelope and slid it across the table. It stopped inches from Fuchs' trembling hands. Pay them, Jack said softly. But this is the last time you engage with them. You tell Kang's dogs that the debt is settled. If they ever approach you, your family, or my site again, they won't be dealing with a scared kid. They will be dealing with me. Do you understand? Fuchs looked at the envelope as if it were a live grenade, then up at Jack, tears of profound gratitude welling in his eyes. Uncle Jack, how can I ever repay you? I thought you would fire me. I thought you would let them kill me. You repay me by keeping your mouth shut, keeping your eyes open, and making sure nobody unauthorized steps foot on my site, Jack commanded, standing up. His eyes suddenly shifted, locking onto a black SUV parked across the street. Its tinted windows rolled up. And Fuchs, Jack whispered, his gaze fixed on the SUV. Did you tell them where I live? Fuchs froze, his face draining of all blood. No, Uncle, I swear on my life. I only told them I was meeting you here. Jack's heart skipped a beat. The SUV across the street wasn't watching the cafe. It was empty. It was a decoy to keep him here. They know, Jack realized, a sickening dread washing over him. He threw a few crumpled bills on the table and sprinted toward his dusty pickup truck. He pulled out his phone, dialing Tu Tien's number frantically. It went straight to voicemail. The cell towers had been jammed. The siege had begun. Back at the isolated house, the air inside was stifling, thick with a terror that tasted like copper. Tu Tien had locked the heavy wooden door, sliding the iron deadbolt into place with a resounding clap. Suddenly, the single light bulb hanging in the kitchen flickered and died. The hum of the old refrigerator ceased. The silence that followed was absolute, heavy, and terrifying. They had cut the power line from the main road. She stood in the dim, gray light of the incoming storm, trying to ground her spiraling panic. She reached for the largest chef's knife on the counter, gripping the handle so tightly her knuckles ached. A loud, heavy rumble vibrated through the floorboards. An engine, a large, heavy diesel engine, was grinding its way up their secluded, unpaved driveway. Tu Tien crept toward the front window, peering through the slight gap in the curtains. A large, unmarked box truck had come to a halt in their front yard, blocking the only exit to the main road. The engine died. 4 men stepped out. They were burly, their bodies covered in dark tattoos, wearing faded work clothes. One of them carried a heavy steel crowbar. Another had a coiled length of thick rope. They didn't look like delivery men. They looked like an execution squad. The leader, a man with a jagged scar running down his neck, pulled a clipboard from his belt in a mocking gesture and began to walk up the concrete steps. Tu Tien backed away from the window, pressing herself flat against the wall, the knife held tightly against her chest. She squeezed her eyes shut. "Where are you, Jack?" "Bang dotty here." "Bang." "Oh, oh, bang dotting." The heavy pounding on the door shook the frame, echoing like artillery fire in the empty house. "Delivery for Mr. Jack," the scarred man called out, his voice dripping with sadistic amusement. Tu Tien didn't move. She didn't breathe. "Hey, little bird, we know you're in there. Your husband sent us. We have some heavy furniture to unload," the voice demanded, the mocking tone dropping into a growl. "Open the door, or we break it down." The sound of metal scraping against metal followed. They were wedging the crowbar into the doorframe, trying to pop the deadbolt. The wood began to splinter and groan under the immense pressure. Tu Tien raised the knife, her entire body shaking, ready to plunge it into the first man who stepped through that door. Suddenly, the roaring of a second engine tore through the air, accompanied by the aggressive screech of tires. Tu Tien's eyes snapped open. A violent, deafening crash shook the very foundations of the house. Outside, Jack had driven his heavy pickup truck straight into the side of the box truck, at 40 kilometers per hour, pinning it against a massive oak tree and trapping two of the thugs between the vehicles. "Step away from my door," Jack's voice roared over the hiss of radiator steam and the groans of the injured men. It was a voice Tu Tien had never heard before. Cold, feral, and ringing with a dangerous, unrestrained violence. "Tootie!" Teet through the curtain. Jack had stepped out of his crumpled truck. In his right hand, he held a heavy, rusted steel rebar pipe from the construction site. Blood was dripping down his forehead from the crash, but his eyes were wide, fixed, and burning with a demonic fury. The scarred leader dropped his crowbar, pulling the switchblade from his pocket, signaling the remaining uninjured thug to flank Jack. "You're a dead man, Jack," the scarred man spat. "Kang sends his regards." "Kang should have sent men, not dogs," Jack growled. The thug on the right lunged. Jack didn't even flinch. He swung the steel rebar with terrifying speed and precision, catching the man directly in the kneecap. A sickening crack echoed through the yard, followed by an agonizing scream as the thug collapsed into the dirt. The scarred leader hesitated, his bravado evaporating. Jack didn't wait. He closed the distance in two massive strides, grabbing the leader by the throat and slamming him brutally against the wooden siding of the house. Jack pressed the heavy steel rebar against the man's windpipe, cutting off his air. "You listen to me very carefully," Jack whispered, his face inches from the choking man. "You go back to Kang. You tell him that if he ever sends his trash to my home again, I won't just break his legs. I will bury him in the foundation of my next building. Now open the back of your truck. Unload the freight I actually ordered. And get off my land." "Eloy!" Coughing and sputtering, the terrified thugs scrambled to comply. From the back of their damaged box truck, they dragged out massive, heavy planks of rich, reddish-brown wood, dropping them haphazardly into the muddy yard. Jack stood over them, the steel pipe resting on his shoulder, until they piled into the smoking cab of their truck and limped away down the dirt road. Only when the engine noise faded completely did Tu Tien unlock the deadbolt and throw the door open. Jack dropped the pipe. His stern, terrifying expression shattered instantly. He rushed up the steps, pulling her into a tight, desperate, bone-crushing embrace. "I'm here," he whispered, burying his bloodied face in her hair, his massive frame shaking with leftover adrenaline. "I'm so sorry. I'm here. Are you hurt?" Tu Tien sobbed against his chest, dropping the knife to the floor with a clatter. "Jack, they were going to kill us. Who were they?" Jack pulled back, his hands gently framing her face. He looked into her terrified eyes and knew he couldn't shield her from the truth anymore. The war had arrived at their doorstep. They are Kang's pawns, sent to break us, Jack confessed, his voice heavy with guilt. But they failed. And this? He gestured to the massive pile of premium wood sitting in the rain-soaked yard. This is my answer to them. This is what I have been secretly preparing for you. The sky outside darkened prematurely as the impending typhoon finally made landfall, unleashing a torrential downpour that hammered violently against the tin roof. Lightning flashed in rapid succession, casting sharp, jagged shadows across the bare, unfinished walls of the house. Inside, however, a different kind of storm was brewing. One of passion, determination, and fierce defiance. Jack had hauled the heavy wooden pieces inside, his shirt soaked with a mixture of sweat, rainwater, and blood. He refused to let Tu Tien lift a finger, banishing her to the kitchen to finish her cooking, while he took over the empty master bedroom. For 3 grueling hours, the house was filled with the rhythmic sounds of hammering, the screech of screws driving into dense wood, and Jack's heavy, focused breathing. It was as if he were exorcising his demons through manual labor, channeling all his fear for her life into the creation of something indestructible. Tu Tien stood at the stove, stirring a pot of noodles, the scent of the pickled figs and garlic filling the air. But her mind was spinning. The revelation that they were actively being hunted by a syndicate terrified her. Yet, strangely, watching Jack work with such primal, obsessive focus ignited a fierce fire within her. He wasn't running. He wasn't packing their bags. He was building. Tu Tien. Jack called out from the bedroom, his voice echoing slightly over the roar of the rain. Close your eyes and come here. Wiping her hands on her apron, Tu Tien obliged. She walked slowly down the short hallway, her hands reaching out blindly. Jack caught her hands, his palms rough and warm, guiding her gently over the threshold of the bedroom. Open them, he whispered, standing closely behind her, his chest pressed against her back. Tu opened her eyes and gasped, her hands flying to cover her mouth. The bedroom, which had been painfully empty just hours ago, was now dominated by a magnificent, colossal structure. It was a bed, but calling it merely a bed felt like an insult. It was a masterpiece of craftsmanship, forged from solid, premium, Exone Dao wood. The frame was massive, measuring nearly 2 meters across, the wood polished to a deep, mesmerizing reddish amber hue that seemed to glow in the dim light of the single emergency lantern Jack had lit. The headboard was thick and monolithic, carved with subtle, elegant lines. It looked less like furniture and more like a fortress, immovable, rooted and incredibly strong. Jack, it's huge, she breathed, walking forward to run her trembling fingers over the smooth, incredibly sturdy headboard. The scent of fresh wood and varnish filled her senses, overpowering the metallic smell of the storm outside. It's 1.8 by 2 meters, Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. He walked up beside her, wrapping his arm around her waist and pulling her close. When I realized those men were trying to intimidate me, trying to infiltrate my work and threaten my home, I realized something. They want us to feel small. They want us to feel like we have no future, no stability, that we have to run. This, he patted the heavy wooden post of the bed. This is my anchor. I'm 19. Tu Tien looked up at him, tears welling in her eyes as she understood the profound psychological symbolism of what he had done. It wasn't just a piece of wood. It was a physical manifestation of his commitment to stand his ground. I bought it this big for a reason, Tu Tien, Jack continued, his voice dropping to a vulnerable, reverent whisper. He turned her to face him, gazing deeply into her tear-filled eyes. This isn't just a bed for us to sleep in while we hide from the world. I want a future with you. A loud, chaotic, beautiful future. I built this bed wide enough, strong enough, so that one day, when the dust settles and we have a baby, There will be enough room for our child to sleep right here, between us. Safe. Unbreakable. The breath caught in Tu Tien's throat. A baby. In the midst of the terror, the death threats, and the absolute uncertainty of their survival, Jack was planting a flag in the ground. He was declaring, unequivocally, that they would survive this war, and they would thrive. A sob broke through her lips. The paralyzing fear that had gripped her all afternoon completely shattered, replaced by a surge of overwhelming, fierce, protective love. She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face in his broad shoulder, crying not out of terror, but out of a profound, bursting happiness. "We will fight them, Jack," she cried fiercely into his skin, her voice finding a new, steely resolve. "We won't let them take our future. We will build our family right here." Jack held her so tightly she could feel the frantic, rhythmic beating of his heart against her own. "I promise you, Tu Tien, no one crosses this threshold to harm you. This bed, this room, this house, it is our sanctuary." The emotional release left them both trembling and physically exhausted. The storm outside continued to rage, the thunder masking the deep silence of the isolated mountain. Jack pulled back, brushing a tear from her cheek with his rough thumb, smearing a tiny bit of dried blood from his forehead onto her skin. "I am covered in sweat, blood and sawdust, and you smell like garlic and rain," Jack said, a tired but brilliant smile breaking across his bruised face. "The power is out, so there's no hot water, but the stream out back, there is a shallow, rocky pool shielded by the cliff. Let's go bathe. Let's wash this nightmare off us before we sleep." Tu Tien nodded, her heart swelling with a fierce adoration for this man. "Yes, let's wash it all away." They stripped down to simple, thin garments and walked out the back door into the relentless downpour. The night was pitch black, illuminated only by the jagged, violent flashes of lightning that ripped across the sky like silver veins. The air was freezing and electric. They stepped carefully down the muddy embankment and into the natural rocky basin of the stream. The water was freezing, sending a violent shock to their systems, instantly waking every nerve ending in their bodies. Jack pulled her against his chest, shielding her from the harshest currents, using his hands to wash the mud and fear from her skin. For a fleeting moment, as they embraced in the freezing water, surrounded by the roar of the typhoon, the world outside ceased to exist. There was only the heat of their bodies, the taste of rainwater on their lips, and the profound, desperate passion of two people who had just stared death in the face and survived. Jack kissed her, deeply and hungrily, his hands roaming her shivering body, a primal assertion of life and love against the backdrop of destruction. But I'm not finished with them yet. Crack. Dot. It wasn't thunder. It was the distinct sound of a rifle bolt sliding into place over the noise of the rushing water. A flash of lightning illuminated the ridge above the stream. Standing there, silhouetted against the stormy sky, were three men. They were wearing dark ponchos, holding long, curved machetes, and one held a hunting rifle pointed directly down at the pool. Kang's men hadn't retreated. The first group was a distraction. This was the kill squad. "Jack, above you!" Tu Tien screamed, her voice tearing through the sound of the rain. Jack didn't hesitate. He didn't look up. Relying purely on instinct, he grabbed Tu Tien by the waist and violently threw them both backward, plunging deep beneath the murky surface of the water just as a gunshot rang out. The bullet hissed through the water, striking the submerged rock where Jack's chest had been a fraction of a second before, sending a spray of sharp stone shrapnel into the current. Underneath the freezing water, it was chaotic and dark. Jack grabbed Tu Tien's hand, dragging her downstream, using the large, submerged boulders as cover from the sniper on the ridge. They broke the surface, gasping for air, hidden beneath the overhanging roots of the giant fig tree. "They're coming down the bank." Tu Tien panicked, wiping the muddy water from her eyes. Two of them with machetes were sliding down the muddy embankment, closing in on their position. Get to the house. Run. Jack commanded, his eyes completely devoid of humanity now. He was a cornered beast protecting its mate. I won't leave you, Tu Tien cried. Go. Go, Jack roared. He shoved her up the muddy bank toward the back door of the house, then turned to face the two men charging into the shallow water. The first thug swung his machete in a wide, lethal arc, aiming for Jack's neck. Jack ducked beneath the blade, the water exploding around him as he drove his shoulder directly into the man's stomach, tackling him beneath the surface. The man thrashed, dropping the machete. Jack held him underwater, wrestling in the mud, adrenaline blinding him to the freezing cold. The second thug approached from behind, raising his blade to bring it down on Jack's exposed back. But Tu Tien hadn't run to the house. She had scrambled up the bank, grabbed a heavy, jagged rock the size of a melon, and launched herself back into the fray. With a scream born of pure, primal rage, she brought the rock crashing down onto the back of the second thug's skull. The man collapsed face first into the stream, unconscious before he hit the water. Jack emerged from the water, leaving the first man gasping and choking on the bank. He looked at Tu Tien, stunned by her ferocity. There was no time for words. The sniper on the ridge fired another shot, shattering the bark of the fig tree inches from Tu Tien's head. Inside, now! Jack yelled, grabbing her hand and sprinting up the muddy hill, zigzagging to avoid the gunfire. They threw themselves through the back door of the cabin, Jack slamming the heavy wooden door shut and throwing the deadbolt. They collapsed onto the floor of the dark kitchen, panting, coughing up stream water, their bodies bruised and shivering violently. But the siege wasn't over. They will try to break through the front and back simultaneously, Jack said, forcing himself to his feet. His eyes darted around the dark, unfurnished house. We need to barricade the doors, quickly. They dragged the heavy refrigerator in front of the back door, wedging it tightly. But the front door, already weakened by the first group's crowbars, was vulnerable. The bedroom, Tu Tien said, her voice shaking, but her eyes burning with a fierce, tactical clarity. We barricade ourselves in the bedroom. The door is solid oak, and the windows have iron grates. Jack nodded. They retreated down the hallway and locked themselves in the master bedroom. Help me move it, Jack grunted, gripping the massive frame of the newly built Exxon Dow bed. Despite its immense weight, fueled by adrenaline and terror, they managed to slide the colossal wooden bed across the concrete floor, pushing it flush against the heavy bedroom door. It formed an impenetrable monolithic barricade. A moment later, they heard the front door of the house give way with a splintering crash. Heavy boots echoed in the hallway. Jack! Come out here and die like a man, a voice yelled from the hall. It was the sniper. Thud. Thud. They began kicking the bedroom door. The wood groaned, but the massive Exxon Dow bed, weighing hundreds of kilograms, absorbed the impact effortlessly. It didn't budge a single millimeter. Jack pulled Tu Tien down to the floor, sheltering her behind the thick, solid wood of the headboard. He reached under his discarded work bag and pulled out a heavy steel nail gun he had brought from the site, slamming a fresh battery into it. It wasn't a firearm, but at close range, it was lethal. If they breach the door, stay behind the bed, Jack whispered, kissing her forehead. But the breach never came. The heavy wood of the bed, the very symbol of their future, proved to be an insurmountable fortress. Frustrated by the impenetrable barricade, and aware that the sound of the crash and gunfire would soon attract the local authorities despite the storm, the thugs eventually gave up. After 30 agonizing minutes of silence, they heard the distant roar of the thugs' truck starting up and speeding away down the mountain. They did not move from behind the bed for the rest of the night. Tu Tien lay curled against Jack's chest, the rhythm of his breathing the only thing tethering her to reality. They listened to the typhoon rage itself to exhaustion, the violent winds eventually giving way to a gentle, steady morning rain. When the first pale gray light of dawn crept through the iron-grated window, Jack finally stood up. He carefully pushed the massive bed away from the door and stepped out into the hallway. The house was a mess. Muddy footprints and broken glass everywhere. But it was empty. They had survived. Shortly after sunrise, the flashing blue and red lights of police cruisers, alerted by the neighboring farmers who heard the gunshots, illuminated their driveway. The nightmare was over. The authorities, armed with Jack's testimony and the physical evidence left behind, would soon dismantle Kang's syndicate. Tu Tien stood in the doorway of the bedroom, wrapped in a warm blanket, watching Jack speak to the police officers in the yard. He was battered, bruised, and covered in dried mud, but he stood taller than any man she had ever seen. He was a titan who had fought demons and won. When the police finally left to secure the perimeter, Jack walked slowly back into the house. He came into the bedroom and stopped, looking at the massive Exxon Dayao bed. It was scuffed, covered in mud and water stains from where they had used it as a barricade, but it remained whole, strong, unbroken. Jack walked over to Tu Tien and gently wrapped his arms around her, burying his face in her neck, inhaling the scent of her skin, grateful beyond words that she was alive. "It protected us," Tu Tien whispered, looking at the bed, her eyes filling with tears. "Your secret, it saved our lives." Jack pulled back, smiling softly, his eyes reflecting the soft morning light. "I told you, Tu Tien. They cannot break what we build together. They cannot touch our sanctuary." He lifted her effortlessly into his arms and laid her gently on the vast, sturdy mattress. As he lay down beside her, the heavy wood didn't creak, didn't shift. It held them with absolute, unwavering stability. That morning, amidst the ruins of their front door and the fading echoes of a violent storm, Jack and Tu Tien didn't just survive. They conquered. The massive wooden bed was no longer just a piece of furniture or a romantic surprise. It was a battle-scarred fortress, a testament to their fierce, unbreakable love and the sacred ground where their future, loud, chaotic, and beautiful, would finally begin. And that brings us to the end of this incredible, heart-pounding journey. What started as a secret wedding gift, a massive Exxon Dayao wooden bed, became a literal fortress that saved Jack and Tu Tien from the clutches of a ruthless syndicate. It wasn't just a beautifully crafted piece of furniture. It was a powerful symbol of Jack's unwavering promise to protect his family at all costs. Through the raging typhoon, the violent siege, and the terrifying darkness, their love and resilience proved to be the ultimate sanctuary that no enemy could destroy. What did you think of Jack's ultimate stand and Tu Tien's bravery? Would you have fought back like they did? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please give this video a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more epic cinematic stories. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, stay safe and keep building your own sanctuary.